So you think you are ticking off all the right boxes and are following all the anxiety advice that you have gathered from the hundreds of sources you found somewhere in the gigantic world of the internet, but really nothing is working for you. I think I know what the likely problem is, because I've been where you are now. I managed to overcome a 5-year-long battle with debilitating health anxiety and general anxiety, and let me tell you that I have the hunch that plenty of us do so many things right, but it is our lack of understanding of how recovery actually looks and feels like that is holding us back and that keeps draining us back down into the anxiety spiral over and over again. If you have been dealing with anxiety for some time already, you have had plenty of downs, but also quite a few ups. You might have been able to maybe string along, in the worst case, a few hours or a few days or maybe even weeks without extreme anxiety, or being bothered too much about all the symptoms you're experiencing. Or even better yet, maybe the symptoms were gone, in part or completely. These times right there are all clear signs that you are on your way to recovery. You're doing things right, but you take the fact that anxious thoughts or symptoms are popping up again as an indicator that you're not doing better after all, or worse yet, that it is perhaps not anxiety, and off you go back to square one with all the research, all the tests, and reassurance seeking. But that shouldn't be the case at all, and let me tell you clearly why. Your immediate goal for anxiety recovery is not being anxious or not having symptoms, but to learn to be content with the fact that they will eventually fire up. I know it can be hard, but at some point you've got to be okay with feeling afraid and feeling uncertain, because that is where you have to jump in and lean into, and that without the pressure to make it stop by taking actions like Googling, seeking out doctors, or asking friends or family if they have ever experienced a specific symptom or whatsoever. Don't go and fight the fear with an inner battle to try and somehow make it go away, because you will be anxious and experience scary things. That is a given in the state you are now. Like with any phobia or anxiety, the best course of action is indeed exposure. And for all of us with health anxiety, that exposure consists of starting to live with all the scary symptoms we are experiencing. So when these symptoms show up, you should take that initial wave of anxiety and dread and try to affirm to yourself that this is exactly how it should be. It was expected. The scary sensations and thoughts are there because your nerves are sensitized. Your brain is in danger mode and you have developed the habit to sense things that others don't and react heavily to the found symptoms. Just because you felt fine for a while does not mean that your nerves are desensitized completely. It does not mean that your stress is not higher than it should be. And most definitely it does not mean that you have gotten rid of that nagging habit of subconsciously checking in to see if everything is alright. And think about it. On those days you felt better, you also probably took on more tasks, maybe met friends or went out to get groceries or went to the movies, worked on yourself. Things were looking a little brighter and you ended up doing more. Although it might not directly feel like it, but in a still highly anxious state, these positive tasks and feelings are pretty much positive stressors. So still stressors, and they can still fire up the same stress reactions and symptoms. Let me try and explain how you should look at recovery and what it actually feels like, because the lack of knowledge in that regard is what often brings us completely off course. When you first learn and try to apply everything you have learned about anxiety, it can feel like nothing is working and you hardly notice any changes or even lower anxiety. But let me tell you, you're mentally already preparing yourself for the next few steps on your recovery journey. By trying to accept your anxiety diagnosis, by not seeking out reassurance and not easily falling back into the bad anxiety habits, you are not making yourself less scared, but you're becoming so much braver and mentally stronger, so that eventually you will have built up the courage to fully let go of your need for control and certainty. Because those two things are what anxiety is making you crave and makes you believe you need to feel at peace. And that is the anxiety dilemma. You think you're living in an uncertain world. Your mind is telling you that you are losing control of your health, for example. But in reality, you probably already did everything you can to get to the bottom of it all. The things you crave, you already have, and it is the high stress levels that make you believe that it's lacking. By slowly slashing away at the bad habits, gradually returning back to living, and implementing good habits, and all that while it feels uncomfortable and perhaps even triggering, you are piece by piece building up your bravery and strength for the next big step and getting a little bit more of your life back, next to the anxiety symptoms. You are effectively and truly exposing yourself to your triggers. So again, it is exactly what you wanted to achieve in the first place. So the last thing you want to do is to let these triggers make you retreat and catapult you right back to the start of your journey. By continuing on your path, eventually you will experience anxiety-free days, which are then often followed by times with anxiety. But if you don't let these completely catch you off guard, because you know and expected them to come at some point, and you have become so mentally strong that you are able to handle these days, well, then your anxiety recovery trajectory is slowly going up and out instead of turning in circles and not going anywhere. The anxiety-free periods become longer, you start to feel more confident in yourself, you regain bigger chunks of life back, and at some point your symptoms start to not bother you anymore, as you have now become stronger than the thoughts they bring up, and that is where they start to lose the power over you, and at some point vanish.